Hello and welcome to SimCast, the Higher Education Simulation Podcast. My name's Tony Jeremy. I'm the Academic Lead for Simulation-Based Education at UEA Norwich.
Hello everyone, my name's Lawrence Hill and I chair the simulation group in the School of Health Sciences at UEA Norwich. Very warm welcome back to SimCast.
And today we are joined by Dan Blood, who is the lead simulation technician at Surrey University.
Hello Dan.
Hi guys.
Dan, thank you so much for joining us today and taking a bit of time out to come and speak to us. It's really good to have you on, and it's nice to see you again because the last time we met was at the HPSN conference in December 2023.
It was back in December. It was a pleasure to see you guys.
Ago. Yeah, it's lovely to see you too.
Great. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the role of the simulation technician.
We are indeed.
If you enjoyed the episode, give us a like. Equally so, if you don't like the episode, give us a dislike, but let us know in the comments why, because we're always keen to improve.
Fantastic. Dan, if we can get straight into, it'd be lovely to know a little bit more about you. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your background and how did you get into doing what you do?
All right. So I think after 15 years, it's safe to say that my background is now in simulation. Prior to that, I finished university with a degree in sociology. Because I was away from home, I was just looking for jobs. I knew universities, so I managed to find part-time work at universities around Canterbury. I was covering maternity leave. Then this weird job came up that I was looking for jobs to boost half my job because I was working part-time. This weird job came up, something to do with training nurses. Amazingly, I got into conversation with the guy who already did the job. He was part of that team. We clicked over, guitar playing and blues music and stuff. And he put in a recommendation for me to get that job, and that's how I got my start. I managed to luckily fall in. It's like I tripped and fell and landed in simulation.
Well, do you know what? There are so many people with those kind of journeys, myself included. I only ever got into healthcare because my auntie was a theatre nurse at the time and said, I think this might be something you're interested in. I nearly became an electrician before that. So, Dan, so you said degree in sociology. So what was the original plan?
No plan. It's one of those things. A degree is going to be good for you. Get out in the world, go get a degree. It'll help you. You get a start in life. And then from that point, I went looking. I've never had a plan, but I've always looked out for the opportunities that are in front of me. And simulation was that bottom rung of the ladder.
I think it does. And that's the beautiful thing, isn't it, about the simulation community is that it is just absolutely ripe with opportunity. I think that there are so many, and you meet so many interesting people, creative individuals looking to do things a little bit differently, and all with this sort of shared purpose of making learning more effective and more fun through making it, immersive and engaging. So, yeah, there's lots of those origin stories of accidental healthcare professionals and accidental healthcare educators.
So can you tell us a little bit about your role now? What do you do in the university? We've got lots of things scrolling on the bottom of your screen there, which is great to see.
Yeah, I'm also a little bit envious, I think. Of
I've got a little bit of screen envy.
The tech skills.
So just to go through my role, I'm the senior technician, which means I manage a small technician team. I've got Carrie and Alex working for me. And our role as a collective is to provide the classroom setups needed for our teaching and to make sure the maintenance is done, buy the supplies, and just generally be inquisitive about what people need so that we can see those puzzles come up in front of us.
And we're going to call this episode the Unsung Heroes because you truly are, as a team, you do all of that work behind the scenes so that, an academic can just turn up and run a sim almost seamlessly. And
I've got to give a shout out to the technicians' commitment, who is such a brilliant initiative. It's really shone a light. Everything I've done in the last couple of years has been off the back of this little shove from the technicians' commitment to make us look a little bit more important, a little bit more visible, to talk about what we do and the fact that nothing really happens without a technician doing the background work.
Yeah. So just to give some context, what's the sort of size of the school you're dealing with? How many students? How many programs at Surrey?
So between normal and the monster cohort that happened in 2021, it's a sort of average of about sort of 400 to 450 students per year. So our 3-year kind of healthcare programs, between those, we end up with about 1,200, 1,300 students. So our sim centers are going through about 90 people in an hour, most days a week.
Okay. So a decent chunk of students to try and get through and manage from the logistics point of view.
Of course. And on top of that, we've got CPD courses, so nurses coming back in to upskill. We've got our physician associate program. And then coming up this September, we're starting a new medical school.
Okay, that's interesting.
Exciting news.
Yeah, that's going that's going to change the picture as well, isn't it? And
it is.
And add to the complexity, no doubt. And
absolutely.
It seems, we've talked a bit on the podcast previously, and at HPSN about navigating complexity. And that's going to be a really interesting challenge for you guys, introducing a whole new program with a whole new skill set and technical requirements.
Completely. Go back to my role. Me personally, I do a lot of timetabling work. Someone put it in a wonderful way the other day, saying Dan is in charge of optimization of the sim center. And what I'm doing is I'm making sure that our rooms, which have different functions, are used in the most appropriate ways by the most appropriate groups. So, somebody wants to use a ward as a lecture theatre when somebody's got folding couches in the classroom. I'm trying to prevent those moments. And with that finger on that particular pulse, I'm trying to figure out how to fit the med school in, which is a really, really interesting puzzle.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's worrying or reassuring that we have similar challenges.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested actually to know a little bit more about, so you're charged with, optimizing the function of the sim center. Do you have to are you the kind of gatekeeper for the simulation that takes place in the specific areas?
Give or take. I'm trying to get the best out of the facility. If we have the room and somebody has a need, we make it work.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm interested in this simulation technician commitment, and I feel like there's something in that sort of speaks to me as somebody who's quite kind of philosophical about a lot of things. But before we get into, deep into what you do and how you do it, speaking of that commitment and thinking about the fact that no one really gets into healthcare or healthcare education because of the money, right? We're not doing it for the money, clearly. So I'm really interested to hear a bit more about why you do what you do.
Something I love about my role is, you hear about frontline staff, and those are heroes, absolute heroes, who are in the hospitals, in the GP surgeries, in the care homes, and they're doing their part. They're amazing. And to be part of their infrastructure, so feeding into those skills, feeding into those roles, supporting the people to improve those patient outcomes, that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So that's where I get a lot of job satisfaction from, is knowing that where I contribute to that is important.
You're making a difference. Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, universities I value greatly. And so we've really got a huge influence on the student experience, which, not to sound cynical, but that it's all about the NSS, the National Student Survey. If we can help this university compete in the National Student Survey, then we are a valuable resource.
Because it makes a big difference as well to learning, doesn't it? Yeah. I think that's the thing, like metrics and evaluation surveys and stuff are important strategically, and they're important in terms of recruitment. But actually, as you say, you're it sounds like the core of your motivation for wanting to do it is about improving the knowledge, skills, and ability of those people out there in practice doing what they do. And without that level of engagement and quality of experience, the learning just isn't as good. And if the learning's not as good, then the outcomes in terms of what practitioners can provide is not as good.
Yeah. And what it's like to have a job that you can see the impact, that's it's the dream, isn't it? So you can see why you are important.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's really nice. It's a really nice place to start, because I think it's useful to have that kind of underpinning kind of foundation of
what's
why.
the drive, what's the passion. Yeah, not just what you do. But let's talk a little bit about what you do, because again, a lot of people watching will probably have had some kind of interaction with a simulation technician if they're not a technician themselves, but they might not necessarily understand what you guys get up to on a day-to-day basis. So can you give us a kind of a typical day in the life of a sim technician? What sort of things are you responsible for?
It's so easy to understand why our role gets misunderstood, because there's such a huge range. If you look from employer to employer to employer, between universities and now T-level colleges, NHS, the work that we are doing, the spectrum of work is so varied. So my team are very much supporting the academics here. So the training is delivered by the academics, and we are here for managing the resources, making sure that things are working, making sure things are ordered, and helping people to use the complex equipment. We don't need them to know how to run a mannequin, for example, one of our high fidelity patient simulator mannequins, and they don't expect us to know how to cannulate or something like that. So we're filling a gap that's left by the skill set of the core driving staff, the academics. They're the people who are delivering the product, and we're giving that background support. So a day in the life of my team really starts the evening before. It's very cyclical. So this morning, past me had left everything ready to start up. Even behind me here, I have some clinical skills models ready for this afternoon. Straight after this chat we're having now, lovely chat, we're going to have some physician associates coming in to do some catheterization training. So all that has been, so we've come in the morning, those have been filled. We make sure that all the supplies are there. We check in with the academics to make sure they're happy and they've got everything. And now this skill sign-off that's happening here can happen. So now everyone's happy, we're in, and we've got to look at what's coming up over the next several weeks. So we're doing ordering. We are liaising back with to academics about what might not be available. There was a glove shortage a while ago. That was a weird one. So we had to figure out how to do aseptic technique without proper sterile gloves. So we had to work through those problems with the educators and come up with a plan. And we've got a process that takes about 3 weeks. We give ourselves that time. Suppliers might let us down, so we need time to solve those problems. Equipment might be broken. Someone might have either damaged it, or it's just got one of those natural gremlins that have popped up. But we've got to find a way to figure that out, do the maintenance. And then eventually, in the lead up to the event, you've got supplies coming in, you've got mannequins that are now ready and working, and you've got to position all that. It's got this reminds me of doing behind the backstage work at a local festival that I used to be part of,
or a festival.
Yeah, and we had we had a band on stage at the time there playing, and you've got the band that's coming on next. They're loading their stuff onto the behind the stage, and so you got. As soon as the curtain drops, you've got to get that band's stuff off and out of the way, and that band's stuff on, and all the microphones set up and everything like that. So kind of that's the kind of changeover we're talking about.
I've got visions of Dan handing me a guitar.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think to be fair, we should probably leave the guitar playing to Dan.
Yeah,
by the sounds
absolutely.
Of it.
But
the thing is, for me, like the word, the sort of the term simulation technician kind of conjures these kind of very technical competencies, but actually for me what you're describing there is
logistics, isn't it?
Is a huge amount of logistics, but also negotiation in terms of I appreciate you want to teach this lecture in this simulation room, but
with arguably some of the hardest people probably in the country to negotiate with, academics.
Yeah, well, quite. And so there's a lot, isn't there? There's a lot, that to say the stuff that goes on behind the scenes is one way of putting it, and that reduces it again. But there is so many different moving parts to think about.
Another thing for me, I think, as an academic, technicians are fixers, aren't they? If I've got a problem, I'll come to a technician, and they'll have a solution. I know they'll have a solution. And I'm guessing
Absolutely.
it's the same with you, Dan.
Yes, just yesterday afternoon, a member of staff walked past my desk and he was thinking about an OSCE station that they wanted to do. Something about a student picking up a phone and it would automatically play like a sound recording of a doctor saying, "Hello, this is Doctor blah blah blah," and instigate an SBAR handover. And because it's an OSCE, we need to find a way to standardize that. And so we've come up with a solution involving, like an iPad that's got like a picture of a phone on the front of it. So once they press that, it'll actually play the audio. We found this handset. It's just like a USB handset that you plug into your iPad.
Okay.
And it's basically it's a headset like this with a microphone on it and an earpiece. But it's in
I
a
used to
handset.
have one of those, and it was great. So you could sit there and talk on your mobile phone with a proper kind of red handset.
Showing your age a bit.
Yeah. It wasn't Bluetooth. It wasn't Bluetooth then. But yeah, no, that's great. So that's
that means in about 10 minutes, we came up with a nice standardizable OSCE station that really it solved their problem.
Perfect.
Great. So I'm going to have to ask, because you've talked about some of the sort of different logistics and responsibilities you have. Are there any things that you really love doing? And equally so, is there anything that you absolutely hate doing as a skills technician?
Interesting. I like solving a puzzle the first time.
Okay.
I hate having to solve it the second time.
or the 100th time.
Yeah. So whenever I solve a problem, my next thing is how do I automate that? How do I make that pretty much just go the next time I want it to? I hate having to do the huge effort twice. If we've solved a problem, we now have a solution. We don't want that to be the same again. So that's quite a vague way of describing it. It might be.
I think it resonates with a lot of people, though. Actually,
yeah. But it might be, how do we organise our storerooms so the equipment is compatible with the order of the timetable? How do we organise the mannequin laptops so that we're not constantly running around with like armfuls of thousands of pounds of equipment? It would definitely break if you dropped it. How do we help staff to ask for the same things over and over again without actually having to write those lists out over and over again? How do we manage changes without everybody getting confused? Things like,
So
great answer.
Yeah, that is a fantastic answer. So it's kind of one and the same thing. It's like you like finding the solutions, but don't want to find them over and over again. And that's a real challenge, isn't it? Of kind of creativity. And again, it's a problem solving thing. How do we automate it?
Yeah. How do we work smarter, not harder?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So obviously part of what you do is around the communication with, a large part of what you do is around the communication with the academic team, and an effective relationship is clearly really important for the smooth and effective running of a simulation centre. So when does it work really well, and what kinds of situations result in you encountering problems?
it works really well when both sides of the coin are able to be flexible to each other. I've caused plenty of problems where I've thought, no, just follow my process and it'll all work. But it doesn't quite work for them. And then there are other people that's like, no, this is not the way I do it. So I don't want to write that list for you in that way. I'll come up with some really weird format.
But, you know, for me, even the way that you've conceptualized it as the being two sides of the same coin, for me, speaks volumes about the way that you see the relationship between academic or clinical faculty and the technician faculty as being like part of the same being.
And we've been here before, haven't we? Because this is kind of how we developed our site model. We recognised that there was a similar issue in our school where we had academics and technicians getting frustrated with each other, but we were both there for the same common goal. And actually it was about understanding this complex interaction between the two people or the two groups, and understanding we were just looking at the same thing from different perspectives.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, heads or tails. So like obviously complex logistics and planning requires quite a lot of planning in advance. So in terms of how you organise, how much time do you need in order for the things? What's your lead-in time for a simulation session? How far in advance are you booked?
So we aim for any normal thing to be about 3 weeks ahead. Let them know about 3 weeks ahead. That means we can do those supplier issues and stuff like that. Anything new, it depends what it is. It might be somebody wanted to do some, the blood grouping practical that it's quite basic for our nurses, so we've never done it, but this was for a foundation year program. So, but it's the first time they'd fit it into their skill. So it's a simple thing of going to Amazon and grabbing these kits, and that was that. But it might be that somebody wants me to completely invent something. There's a model that we haven't quite got around to making yet called a salad trainer. That's suction assisted laryngoscopy and
they're great. I've seen them.
Disinfecting decontamination model. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a regurgitating, hugely aspirating airway head.
Yeah.
Which you have to suction vigorously.
Yeah. So we've got
is a perfect acronym.
Oh yeah. So we've got old mannequins, and instead of scrapping all of it, we kept quite a lot of body parts, including the heads. And a lot of these have advanced airways, so they have an esophagus as well as the lungs on them. So we can hook that up, I'm sure. But we just finding the time around all these other logistical problems is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Sounds messy.
So I'm going to just come in here because Lawrence loves this phrase, work as imagined versus work as done. So 3-week lead in time is work as imagined. What's work as done like? What's the reality? Does it always happen like that?
I need 5 sim men tomorrow. Can you do it?
Yeah.
I need 4.
Guilty as charged, Your Honour.
Yeah.
I've done it before.
Quite often, it's a series of simple things that turns into a complicated cloud of simple things that's needed for maybe like early next week. So it's a few days. These are all things that we're able to turn around. I've done things like create some clinical skills trolleys. These are like double, like Bristol-made trolleys and the drawers contain models such as arterial blood gas wrist model, plus the supplies for it. We hang a cannulation arm off the side of it, and we've got the supplies for venipuncture and cannulation. So really it's about deployability for us.
Yeah.
We can
like
roll that into a
simulation. It's like the simulation equivalent of a resus trolley.
Yeah.
But our technical team have done something similar, actually. They've tried to get around that logistical problem of academics maybe not ordering things in time or maybe not ordering things at all with kind of common grab and go
Absolutely.
Sets or boxes that will have the main equipment that you need for airway management or the main equipment you need for cannulation. So in the event that there's zero planning, you've still got something to potentially fall back on.
And what made me laugh is that one of the first things I did about almost 12 years ago now when I first landed in Surrey is get rid of all of the teaching boxes that had a little bit of one thing in them, plus like half a box of gloves and a like very out of date something to go to that. And that was, this is the cannulation practical in this box. And it's like, I want to hand that to somebody. I want to know where the cannulas are. I want to know where the supplies are. I want them to be grabbable, but not sit there gathering dust in a box and taking up loads of space in a wasted box.
And that's a good point as well, because I think the simulation technician underworld that there is, the prep and store facility if simulation technicians are the unsung heroes, these are really the unappreciated spaces in a simulation center. So the organisation and the kind of control in that environment is important for what happens in the room, which people see as the simulation happening.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to hide so much because we teach such a range of fields, a lot of it conflicts. So we need to be able to hide a lot of the stuff. So we can't just have a child ward because that ward has to be for adults, or it has to be midwifery, or it has to be this.
Yeah.
So it's like a magician's hat, isn't
it?
The simulation technicians.
We have the same problem, don't we? We have multi-use spaces that literally transform. We could be morning and afternoon completely different. Ideally not, but certainly the day-to-day. It might be injection training one day and then advanced life support the next. So they have to be adaptable spaces, don't they?
So you've talked quite a lot about creative solution finding. And we got to see some of your creative side at the HPSN conference when you ran a workshop making basically body parts, essentially.
I was really chuffed with my wound.
You were?
Yeah.
Tony was really proud of that wound that he made. But can you tell us a bit more about the creative side of things that you do? You mentioned about making a salad trainer, and that's a bit of a project to do. But talk to us about some of the other kind of creative solutions that you found in your role.
So first of all, I've got to give a lot of credit to my colleague, Carrie. Over lockdown, we really started getting into self-mixed silicone and what we could do with it. And really, it started with splats, just pouring it into a tray and then gouging a wound and putting makeup on it and seeing if we can make a stick-on wound. Because I think we were scared of making a massive mess with like plaster. And what we've learned over time is how simple it is to make a mold out of silicone, like we did at the HPSN conference, and then use that to mass produce things. So we've done things. Well, Carrie has done some amazing stuff. She's created a polydactyl hand for a prompt baby.
Yeah,
and that was fantastic because it fooled 50% of our midwifery students who were doing the newborn infant physical examinations. So they've got to do a full head-to-toe check, and half of them missed the extra finger.
They just assumed it was a simulation mannequin that have 5 digits.
It's an absolutely perfect feedback moment for them.
Oh, that's great.
So we're like on that same theme. We're working on like a web neck, and then there are the innovations that we come up with. We noticed that silicone is very soft, but it doesn't like. We could screw our fetal electrodes into silicone, and it doesn't really tear. It comes out very nicely, but it also sticks very nicely. So we managed to get a mold of a model baby's head, and so we can now do a really nice fetal electrode practical, and it's dirt cheap. It's so cheap.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Sorry, a fetal electrode. What's that?
Fetal scalp electrode.
So that's placed into the scalp.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's really interesting, Dan. Thank you so much for telling us about that. Sorry, I don't know anything about fetal scalp monitoring. New thing for me. Every day's a school day. But we probably better start thinking about segueing this podcast towards a close. And before we do, what one piece of advice would you give, or what's the one thing that's given you loads of satisfaction and intrigue in what you do? What keeps the fire on inside Dan Blood's simulation technician brain?
Very selfish answer, feeling clever. Honestly, it's being in that position to come and fix the problem. Right. That someone's struggling with, and managing to get that teaching session started again, preventing downtime. It gives me a really great deal of satisfaction, and I've developed a skill of not only doing all the correct steps in the correct order, but also at the right speed. And it's the people who are in the room panicking at the time who they're having real trouble with it, and they might have ended up closing all of the mannequin's controller software windows, or like just shutting down something that they don't know what they're doing with. And if I'm able to walk in and just get it all going again.
Have you got a cape that you wear when you do that? Because it is like I've been in that situation. I've broken it. I don't know what to do. It's not working anymore. And then a technician comes in and just fixes it.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, but that speaks to everything that you said about. I mean, I don't think that's selfish at all. I think you've got as Liam Neeson says in Taken, a certain set of skills, and being able to come in and to exercise that and to continue to deliver the teaching sessions, which, as you say, are at the core of making sure these people have the right skills in practice. I think that's a noble aim. I will find you and I will fix you.
What a perfect way to end the podcast.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, guys. Nice to see you. Hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye for now. And thank you very much for listening again to SimCast, where we do hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please do tick us a like and drop us a comment and let us know anything you would like to know about the world of the simulation technician, because it sounds like a fascinating field of endeavour.
Does indeed. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.